Today's video is brought to you by Card Kingdom. And right now you can get this sweet Scoop Soldier sticker when you order over on cardkingdom.com. Just mention in your order notes that you want a Scoop Soldier sticker when you check out. Hey friends, it's Tomer and welcome back to Budget Commander. Commander 2020 pre-constructed decks have arrived, and that means it's time for another round of $20 Precon upgrades. I'll first go over how each pre-constructed deck plays, why you should buy it, and the various directions that you can upgrade the deck and make it your own. Keep in mind that these videos are abbreviated versions of the upgrade article, so if you want a more detailed look at this deck and more upgrade options, then check out the article linked in the video description below. We start off with my personal favorite deck of the bunch, Timeless Wisdom, a cycling control deck that constantly discards and draws cards for sweet value. There are plenty of cards that reward you for cycling, discarding, and drawing cards. We can blink our own creatures or opposing creatures with Astral Drift, generate treasure tokens and fight stuff with Surly Badgersaur, or summon a swarm of locusts with the Locust God. The deck's goal is to control the board with a wide variety of removal spells, all while drawing more and more cards. Eventually we win by overwhelming the board with a token army, a big beefed up threat, or mass reanimation. Before we hop into the upgrade section, let's check out the pre-constructed deck list. Timeless Wisdom is heavily focused on discarding and drawing cards, with a special emphasis on the cycling mechanic, which does both. I count 31 cards with the cycling mechanic, 14 cards that reward you for cycling, and at least 9 more cards that reward you for discarding or drawing cards. While cycling away, Timeless Wisdom has a ton of powerful options to control the board. Outside of removal, the deck protects itself with tokens, which are good blockers that eventually win you the game once you've reached a critical mass to start attacking for lethal damage. Like all the precons, Timeless Wisdom comes with multiple potential commanders, each focusing on a different archetype to build around. For this video, however, I'm going to be focusing on Gavi Nest Warden. I'll show you how to tune Timeless Wisdom into a more focused cycling deck, removing cards that don't fit our theme and adding more cards that do. Gavi Nest Warden is the first ever legendary creature that specifically supports the cycling mechanic. Gavi's first and foremost ability is letting you pay 0 instead of paying the cycling cost of the first card you cycle each turn. It doesn't matter what the cycling cost is, Gavi lets you cycle it for 0 mana once per turn. In a typical 4-player free-for-all game, that's up to 4 cycling costs being 0 mana each turn cycle, which ends up saving you a ton of mana in no time at all. Gavi's second ability is a token generator. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, Gavi creates a 2/2 dinosaur cat token. While not tied specifically to cycling, cycling is a way to draw multiple cards each turn, and a deck like Timeless Wisdom can easily find itself in a situation where you're cycling enough cards to create multiple tokens per turn cycle. These tokens do not have any specific synergy with the cycling archetype, but they're fine blockers early on in the game, and later on they can start generating additional value by attacking, perhaps even winning the game with them. It's impossible not to get value out of Gavi's fantastic abilities in a cycling deck. Just by herself, you can generate up to 4 creature tokens per turn cycle in a typical 4-player game if you cycle 7 cards per turn cycle. But then pair Gavi with any number of cards that care about cycling, discarding, or drawing cards, and suddenly you've got a devastating engine that's constantly removing opposing creatures, growing a huge token army, and pinging your opponents to death. As I often explain in my Budget Commander articles, every time I build a rough draft of a deck, I use a deck building checklist to make sure the deck has its fundamentals properly covered, such as mana, interaction, and card advantage. This gives me a reference point to compare to the deck and see which areas may need improvement. My general ratio is 50 mana, lands and ramp, usually a 37-13 split, 10 card draw, cards that net you 2 or more cards in hand, 6 targeted removal, split between creature, artifact, enchantment removal, and counter magic, 3 board wipes, creature light decks might want 1 more, creature heavy decks might want 1 less, 2 graveyard recursion, 2 flexible tutors, but for higher budgets I recommend more tutors, 1 graveyard hate, and at least 1 surprise I win card, something that can win games the turn you casted without too much setup. That's always my starting point, which is then tweaked to suit the individual deck strategy and further tweaked with playtesting. I usually find this checklist immensely useful for figuring out quick ways to improve the deck in question. So let's see what the rough ratios are for Timeless Wisdom and how it compares. I count 52 mana, 39 lands, and 13 ramp, 8 card draw, 12 targeted removal, 4 board wipes, 6 graveyard recursion, 0 flexible tutors, 0 graveyard hate, and at least 1 surprise I win card. Now let's analyze the parts in a bit more detail. While 39 lands sounds a tad much, 10 of these lands have cycling, which makes it likely that you'll hit all your land drops without the risk of flooding out, so I think that's the perfect number. The mana fixing is respectable but not amazing. The best two are Command Tower and Exotic Orchard to get potentially all 3 colors you need on untapped lands. 15 lands enter tapped, which can hurt the deck's tempo. The ramp package is a definite highlight of this deck and is a significant improvement from Commander Precons of years past. Reliable ramp staples like Sol Ring, Arcane Signet, and the Guild Signets are great to see, and while a bit worse, I'm a fan of both Commander Sphere and Rogrin Crystal here too, as they synergize with the deck while mana fixing. In addition to generic ramp, we have the cycling all-star ramp options, specifically Gavi, Nest Warden, Fluctuator, and New Perspectives, which are the 3 most important cards in the entire deck. The only real stinkers here are Bonder's Ornament and Cryptic Trilobite, both overcosted and lacking synergy in this deck. While 31 cards in the deck have cycling, there are only 8 cards that are a net gain in card draw. New Perspectives is the very best here, being both card draw and the single best ramp card in our deck. There are also mediocre cards like Hieroglyphic Illuminations that get a big boost in power due to having cycling. Since our deck can produce so many tokens, Reconnaissance Mission can be one of our most powerful card draw options. Overall, the card draw package is pretty good, but the number of hand refillers is a bit low for my taste, and some options like Mercurial Chemister are a bit too slow for me. The number of cards that can remove targeted threats is high, but many of them are slow or require significant setup. We do have powerful, reliable options like Dismantling Wave or Cast Out, but many others require a lot of setup, like Surly Badgersaur or Savai Thundermane, and they take quite a bit of cards or mana to take out bigger threats. This section could be better. The 4 board wipes are all fantastic. 3 of them have cycling, which adds even more synergy here. Descend Upon the Fisherman stands out as not being a cycler, but in this deck it's easy to reliably activate Delirium with all the cycling you're doing, so it's actually better than it looks. There's room for improvement here like everywhere, but I wouldn't be in a rush to upgrade these board wipes. The Recursion package is definitely another highlight of this deck. Sun Titan, a format staple that is good pretty much anywhere, is even better here when it's getting back cycled lands like Drifting Meadow. New options like Spellpire Phoenix are great too, though Ethereal Forager probably wants to be in a deck with more instants and sorceries and a haste enabler. The best of these, however, is Herald of the Forgotten, able to mass reanimate a huge chunk of your graveyard at once, which is a crazy game-winning tempo swing. So there's no tutors and no graveyard hate, which is not surprising here. The Precons pretty much never have any tutoring or graveyard hate in them. The tutoring aspect I understand. This is an introductory product, and tutoring for cards that you aren't familiar with would suck. But no graveyard hate, that I don't understand. Pretty much every deck runs some amount of graveyard recursion, including the Precons, and some decks are entirely devoted to graveyard strategies. Graveyard hate is just as important as any other form of removal. I wish Wizards of the Coast would start adding graveyard hate to these decks to teach new players how important these cards are. Now that we've identified what we're looking to improve, let's go over the $20 worth of card upgrades. Keep in mind that this list was under $20 at the time of this recording, but card prices are currently volatile and may change drastically by the time this video is released. And in fact, this is the 3rd time I'm recording this part of the video since price spikes keep happening. Hopefully the price is close to $20 when you're watching this, but unfortunately I can't guarantee it. Alright, let's go over each card swap. As much as I love the Impetus cycle, these cards don't fit our cycling theme, so they are easy cuts. We're going to remove Shiny Impetus for one of the best cycling support cards, Unpredictable Cyclone, which upgrades our cycling activations from just drawing a card to casting cards from our library for free. We're cutting the next Impetus for another staple cycling support card, Astral Slide. Astral Slide functions exact same as Astral Drift, temporarily exiling our opponent's creatures to stop them from doing things, protecting our own creatures from removal, or letting us reuse our creatures enter the battlefield or leave the battlefield triggers. We're cutting the last Impetus for Thought Reflection, which is one of the best card draw engines in the deck, letting us draw 2 cards instead of just 1 whenever we cycle, turning all our cycling activations into insane card draw. Thought Reflection used to be its cheaper version, Alhammaret's Archive, but the artifact keeps rising in price. Agitator Ant is cut for the same reason as the Impetus cycle. Forced Combat doesn't synergize with our deck. We're replacing it with Bag of Holding, which, like Thought Reflection, is insane card advantage in our cycling deck since we can store our cycled cards in it to get back later for just 4 mana. I was shocked that this card is so cheap, and I'm hoping it stays this way until the video is published. Portal Mage is a cute combat trick, but is too situational and lacks synergy in our deck. We're cutting it for Idyllic Tutor, a fantastic tutor here since all our deck's best engines are enchantments. Isperia Supreme Judge deters attackers as well, but costs a lot of mana and usually ends up doing nothing before dying to removal. We're replacing it with Afara, God of the Polis, which draws us a ton of cards from the tokens produced by cards like Gavi, or blinking creatures with Astral Slide or Astral Drift. Mercurial Chemister functions as both repeatable card draw or removal, but is too slow to get going. We're cutting it for Muldrifter, consistent card draw that becomes insane card draw when we're blinking it repeatedly with Astral Slide or Astral Drift. Same idea with Chandra Flamecaller being swapped out for Watcher for Tomorrow. Chandra is both card draw and removal, but is slow and conditional at both. Meanwhile, Watcher can be blinked dozens of times and draw all the cards. And same thing with Windfall swapped out for Cloudblazer. Windfall is a great card, but the synergy potential here is too good to pass up on. Cryptic Trilobite is a powerful combo piece, but doesn't combo in our deck, and it's a terrible ramp card. We're taking it out for Cloud of Fairies, a cycling card that can ramp us when paired with, you guessed it, Astral Slide or Astral Drift. Akeem the Soaring Wind is a steady source of tokens in our deck and can act as a finisher, but it's slow and costs a ton of mana, and our deck simply doesn't need it. We're replacing it with Flourishing Fox, a cycling card that can also be a great blocker or lethal attacker for just 1 mana. Psychosis Crawler is actually a great card here, but our deck just so happens to have more efficient options. One such option is Draneth's Stinger, a cycling card that deals almost as much damage since most of our card draw comes from cycling, but it's way cheaper and can be cycled itself. Ethereal Forager is a cool card, but it just doesn't have the best synergy in our deck. We're swapping it out for Soul Guide Lantern to give our deck Graveyard Hate. Eternal Dragon simply costs too much to be good. We're replacing it with Miscalculation. Descend Upon the Fisherman is a fine board wipe, but Starstorm is even better at instant speed and its cycles. Migratory Route is overcosted and unappealing. We're replacing it with Complicate, a sweet gotcha card that can cycle and counter something. Bonder's Ornament is a terrible ramp card, plain and simple. We're replacing it with Talisman of Conviction, an actually good ramp card. Hoofprints of the Stag is a slow token generator that we don't need. We're replacing it with Forsake the Worldly. Omniseas is another slow threat that we have better options for. We're replacing it with Radiant's Judgment. And our final swap is Spirit Karn, another token generator that costs too much mana for what it offers. Having to pay specifically white mana to use it is pretty clunky in our 3-color deck. We're replacing it with Violent Impact. If you're willing to spend more money upgrading the deck, then there's plenty of expensive, powerful upgrades left to add, but that will be left for a future video. Putting it all together, here's the Timeless Wisdom Precon with the $20 upgrade installed. Even with a tight budget, we have significantly improved the power level of this deck by shoring up its weaknesses and building upon its strengths. Hopefully this breakdown can serve as an example on how you can build and improve decks on your own. And that's it for the $20 upgrade of Timeless Wisdom. That's 1 down, 4 to go, and I'm on to the next Precon upgrade. Until next time, friends, see ya! Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up with the latest and greatest, click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to check out similar videos, click on the links here and here.